not want to do that. Okay. So we've got Dave in Illinois wants to talk about why he believes in God. Dave, you're on with Ethan and Secular Rarity. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing good. I actually, this is Dave I used to karaoke with a long time ago. So we have history together. We used to go to the same karaoke bars. How you been?
I've been really good, man. How have you been?
I have been good. I miss karaoke very much, man, because we used to have so much fun back in the day singing to larger audiences, and I miss those days.
Oh, for sure.
So Dave,
that was a blast, man. I miss those. What was that?
So Dave, why do you believe in God?
Why do I believe in God? So as a child, I actually was born with 2 heart defects. So I had a congenital heart failure. So I almost didn't make it.
Oh,
And
wow.
so my mother prayed or whatever that I would make it, and I made it. I made it through, and I guess I was one of the first children. This is back in the 80s that actually survived from 2 open heart surgeries that I had. And just kind of from that, I thought, well, Jesus, man, there's got to be something to that, to say that God doesn't exist or to say that I don't believe in him when something so miraculous like that, is the reason why I'm still here, it's truly amazing. And then I've just kind of had other instances throughout my life that have been like really, moving, and I just kind of believed from there,
Could
I feel like the only explanation for it could be God.
Could I jump in real quick, Dave? Just to clarify, so that I kind of understand where you're coming from fully. It sounds like to me you're saying, what was a pretty traumatic experience for a brand new baby, of course, and for new parents as well, I'd imagine. That is kind of the ground layer underpinning, and then you've had some things on top of it over the years that kind of reconfirm that. Is that kind of what you were saying?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. 100%. Absolutely. Yes.
So if there were, some way to, I don't even know yet, but if there was some way that we could kind of shake that foundation, would all of those other things still apply? Would you still be able to say like, well, I had this experience when I was 20 and that reconfirmed that first experience? If we could show that first experience maybe wasn't exactly as founded as you thought.
Absolutely. I don't think there's, even if you shake that or whatever, I think, so many things that have gone into my life, like all my success that I've had, where I'm at today as a person, so much of it, like, I feel like I cannot take credit for all of it, because I think, throughout my life growing up, I think people assumed I would go nowhere and become nothing. And then I have become so successful. And it's like, what else could, explain that,
Why do you want to give credit for your success? Why would you want to give credit to anything other than you? Why do you feel that need, do you think?
I don't necessarily feel that need. I just feel like,
you said it couldn't have come from you, right?
What?
Correct me if I'm wrong here, Dave, but it sounded like you said, well, people thought I wasn't going to go anywhere and I'm so successful now, and that just couldn't have been from me. Is that not what you said?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like it just couldn't have been for me. And
Why?
I think a lot of that is just, growing up in, church and stuff like that, I think we're kind of taught to believe that, that it's from the glory of God is like it's taught to believe, we are taught to believe that like through God, all things can happen or whatever. And so I guess it's just the teaching that I have been taught ever since I was pretty young, that's, what you believe is that, through God, great things can happen.
Would you be open to the possibility of like a naturalistic explanation? Like, for instance, what if it was just the doctors that were able to, and don't get me wrong, I'm so grateful everything worked out as it did. I'm glad I had the chance to meet you and hang out with you.
Yeah,
But what if it was just the doctors who saved your life? Do you think that's possible?
So, I mean, I think anything is possible. And of course, they saved my life. You know, I wouldn't be here without the doctors, right? I absolutely wouldn't be here without the doctors. But as much as I wouldn't be here without the doctors, you know, I still consider the fact that my mother prayed, right? She prayed, you know, that, you know, everything would turn out or whatever, you know. So I think, well, what if she hadn't have prayed? Would it have not turned out? What if she hadn't have been religious? Would it have not turned out, right? Because I'll never know those type of things. You can't go back and erase what was done, right?
Sure.
I can only
So-
take what was done and just go, okay.
Dave, do you mind if I? Oh, go ahead, Ethan. Go ahead.
Do you think there is a way we could test prayer or God in a reliable, repeatable way? Because, like, for me, Dave, I used to be a believer for most of my life. I was a Christian, but I found that any tests I put forth, God could never really pass. Do you have any ways we could test it? Test his prayer or test your prayer ability?
So I don't think there's necessarily any ways to test it, but you know, I think part of the problem is I think there's a misconception, you know, amongst people about the way it works with God, right? I think we think that God is on our time, but actually it's the other way around. So what I mean by that is that, you know, you can pray and pray and pray and things may not happen the way that you want them to, but the Christian belief is that, like, it doesn't happen the way you want it to. It happens the way that God wants it to happen, and God knows, you know, what is truly going to fill your heart. So you actually continue to keep praying and continue to keep doing that, and you might actually find that in the end of the road, He actually fulfilled your life with something greater than you thought, you know, was fulfilling. So you think, oh, if only I could be this or have this, or if I keep praying this and that, you know, and you think that in the end, that's what's going to make you happy. But in the end, God might give something to you that brings more joy to you than you ever thought fathomable, right?
So
but I don't know
Dave,
if there's necessarily a way to test it.
Yeah, so I think I understand where you're coming from on that. But I guess what jumps into my head immediately is Shiva or Vishnu.
Okay.
The Anunnaki, right? So I got a neighbor and they pray to Vishnu and Vishnu grants them prayers. And I guess what I'm wondering is where do you put the value of those stories of people? Do you feel like they also are correct in their understanding of what took place when they prayed to Vishnu and then received the answer to their prayer?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense what I was asking? If not, I can.
That's okay. So, like, you know, the thing about it is each religion, you know, whatever, is a little bit different. So, like, I mean, it's interesting because I kind of find religion to be fascinating in that when you look at different religions and different beliefs, you know, who's to say that one belief is right and one belief is wrong, right? And so, to answer your question of, like, the value of that, you know, I don't know what the value of that is because I don't practice that or whatever. So it's like even the Muslims, they pray, like, to a certain direction at a certain time,
right?
And they have, like, all these things that they believe in and do. And I'm not saying that that's absolutely wrong, because
But
I
do you
don't
believe
know.
it?
That's the interesting thing. What?
That's what is interesting to me. The fact that you believe this story for yourself based on prayer and a personal experience. I'm wondering, do you believe the Muslim story when they say they prayed and they had a personal experience too? Do you put them at the same?
Sure. I mean,
so
yeah, I think anybody can have a personal experience from prayer. I mean, I think regardless of what your religion is or whatever, I think, you know, prayer can be beneficial, you know, regardless of that. And I think you can have, you know, different experiences and whatever, but yeah, I think it can be very positive experiences can come from prayer, regardless of what your religion, is.
I guess, like, do you know of a way where we could determine the difference and find out which God is real?
That's where I was going, Ethan.
Okay, so which God? Okay, so there really isn't, right? Because each religion, believes in a different God. So, like for the Muslim religion, it's Allah. So that is what they actually pray to. They pray to Allah. It's not God, but that means God, I think, in their language. And so to say that like this God is real and that God is not, there isn't really a way. I mean, or I don't feel like there's a way in that, it's just like saying my religion is right and their religion is wrong or whatever, who's to say, right? Because each religion is a little bit. So religion originally came from the Hebrew. So that's where it was originally like transcribed. It was Hebrew and Latin, I believe, is the other transcription. And so what's kind of interesting about that is I always wonder, like, when it was transcribed, who's to say that it wasn't transcribed incorrectly? Because it's from, millions and millions of years ago, right? Before Christ and all these different things. So, like, who's to say that, like, at some point it was
Dave,
lost?
give me just a second here. If I can just cut in again, because I feel like we definitely have a lot that we could probably push back on. I know I do, but one thing that comes to my mind that's kind of sticking for me, and I don't know how I get past it. It seems to be that you've both said you have made a decision as to what is correct, but then you've also said, well, we can't make a decision, and who's to say which decision to make? It sounds like you accept that your mother prayed to a particular understanding of a particular God and that was right and that it happened. But how, if you know that, if you're saying that, well, who's to say what's right? How do we know one way or the other? Well, why do you come to that determination? That's what interests me.
Sure. So what you're asking me is, how do I come to the determination that, through my mother's prayer, that's how I'm still here? Is that what you're asking me?
No, not really. So let me try and rephrase it. It sounds like just a second ago, you basically said there's a box that we can't open with potentially something in it, and nobody knows what's in that box, but I know what's in that box. It sounds like to me you've made the understanding of a particular God, but at the same time are also saying that you can't discount other particular gods. So how did you come to the determination? Am I making sense, anybody?
I think, Dave, what he's trying to say is, like, how do you know your God is the correct God?
That's it. Thank you, Ethan.
Yes.
Yeah. So I got that. Yeah, you don't know. I mean, I don't think there is, a necessarily a way to know whether or not my God is the correct God, right? So there's different versions of the Bible, right? And so, like, I can believe that my version of the Bible is the correct version too, right? But the reality is who's to say that, like, the Catholic version or the Seventh-day Adventist or whatever is the correct version? Or even to go crazy and say that, Jehovah's Witness, maybe that's the right version, right? Maybe that's the right, teaching. So I try not to focus too much on whether or not my God is the correct God or my Bible is the correct Bible, and just focus on the fact that there is a God. It's something to believe in, and, and I look at what he's done for me in my life. And it's interesting because if you talk to people who really are into prayer, even more so than myself, I think they speak upon what prayer has done for them and how it's, affected their life, and how, believing in the Bible and the teachings that they've learned from the Bible, how it's greatly impacted their life, in a very positive way.
I have a question. And we got to move on in just a moment, but what if you're praying to the wrong God? How would you know? And are you concerned about that?
I wouldn't know, and you know what? I guess I'm not really. I mean, some religious people might be, but I don't really think about like praying because you know when you're praying, you just pray. You don't say, okay, you know, let's say you're Lutheran. You don't say, okay, God is the Lutheran. You know, I'm praying to you. You just to pray, right? You just pray, right? So I mean, maybe some might pray to Allah, and maybe some might pray, you know, to whoever, but for me, it's just an open prayer. You know, I have to go through Jesus to get to God and all that kind of stuff. But you have a very valid question. It's a very interesting question. I love it. In that I feel like there isn't really a way to know whether or not you're praying to God, but you shouldn't really, in my opinion, you shouldn't put too much focus on that because, you know, God is something that we can't see, right? Like even when you go to the heavens, you know, you can't see him. He's just like this light or whatever, from my understanding. And you'll read that in the Bible too. If you get into the Bible, you'll read how God is truly something that nobody can see even once you've made it to heaven or whatever. It's just literally like this kind of light or whatever. And so people have tried to sketch out pictures of, based on what they've read in the Bible, what they believe God actually looks like, because nobody really knows what God actually looks like. So
well,
I feel
Dave,
like
can I just hop on again? I'm so sorry to cut you off,
Yeah.
man.
Go
I
ahead.
know Ethan is looking at the screening rooms and stuff, and I think we have a couple of other good calls. But this was awesome, man. I just want to say I really do appreciate, you know, you coming on and chatting with us and letting us kind of it was absolutely a great conversation, man. And before we go, can I maybe just ask that over the next couple of days or week or month or just kind of
Sure.
just let that question that Ethan threw out at you at the end, would you just like kind of ponder on that and mull it over and see if maybe there would be a potential reason as to why it would be bad if there is a God and you're praying to the wrong one. I could think of a couple of reasons why that would be deeply, deeply important to make sure you don't get wrong. But yeah, if you just kind of, if you would just, you know, mull it over whenever you're in the shower or cooking breakfast. I don't know if you cook breakfast or not, but anyway, man, I think great, man. Great. Well, I think we have a couple of other callers, and again, just thank you so much for hanging out with us, man.
Yeah, Dave, I appreciate the call. It was nice nice hearing from you again.
Yeah, you too, man. It was awesome. It was great. I loved it.
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, you do the same, man.
All right, have a good one.
I liked that question, Ethan. I think
Thanks.
I think there's a really I can think of a lot of really good reasons as to why, if there is a God, you better make sure you get the one right.
Yeah,
You know, I can think of a
wanna be
lot of,
fun.
I mean, yeah, my eternal damnation is on the line, and I would very much prefer not that. So we'll see.
And I will, yeah. So $10 super chat from Ameet, Mathew, secular rarity, giving callers homework as always. Honestly,
Right.
I love that. Like we should all, after each show, not just the callers, but the host, we should be going home with a lot of homework and things to think about and hearing what these people have to say and hopefully learning something from it. And I hope the callers do too. Like I hope he takes the time and does the homework that SR asked of him.
Yeah, I agree again, man. I think we should all be definitely constantly looking into new things, and just trying to get, you know, really, you just, it's so interesting to me when people want to just plant a flag in something and say this is it and move on. Like there's just so many interesting things about a lot of different topics, and there's just no way to explore them all. Why not keep a little bit more of an open mind?
So Evan says, I thought this was an atheist page. This absolutely is. This is a atheist-based show. We take callers from all different beliefs, and they'll call in with what they believe, why they believe it, and we'll talk to them about it. But yes, this is not only an atheist page, but an atheist show. You ready to get to